You know, music is not created in a void. It mirrors the time in which it was created. For example, songs from the 40s sound totally different than songs from the 50s. And by the time we got to the 60s and 70s, the music was reflecting what was going on, but also influencing what was going on. So I thought it might be fun to pick a year and talk about some of my favorite records that came out in that year. Not necessarily in terms of sales or popularity, just things that I liked. And then also tell you a little bit about what was going on that year. You know, kind of give you a context for where the music came from. So you ready to go on a magical history tour? All right then, let's drop the needle. "1963 was a very pivotal year for world events and for music. No one had any idea at the beginning of the year how different we would all be by the end of the year. In the deep south of Alabama, George Wallace becomes governor and brazenly states segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever. On the other side of the political spectrum, we have the youngest president we've ever had with John F. Kennedy. The music scene is all about surfing, cars, girls, and folk music. The Beach Boys catch their big wave with their second album, Surfin' USA. It goes to number 2 and launches a surf music craze out of Southern California that takes over the country. Notable songs are the title, Surfin' USA, The Lonely Sea, Noble Surfer, and Shutdown, where they add their love for another Southern California craze, hot rod cars. Because of the massive popularity of the Beach Boys, many more surf bands follow. Here are two of my favorites. The first are the Ventures, known and loved for their surf sound music. Now, they started in 1958, and they are an instrumental group, and they're still active and still touring. One of the albums they released in 1963 was called Surfin', and it was their 10th album. And in fact, in 1963, they released 5 albums just in that year. All the songs on the album are about surfing. You have the title, Surfin', Pipeline. You get the idea. There's even a song called Barefoot Venture. Another surfing band came out of all places, landlocked Minnesota. Now I know it's the land of 10,000 lakes, but they don't really have an ocean. Anyway, they had a surf band. The Trashmen had their biggest hit in 1963 with the never-forgettable song Surfin' Bird. They disbanded 3 years later in 1967, but sporadically regrouped in the 70s and 80s, and actually kept performing until 2015, when they decided to hang up the surfboards and retire. One of country music's biggest stars, Patsy Cline, tragically dies in a plane crash in 1963. On the pop front, female singers had a great year in 1963, led by 17-year-old Leslie Gore, who had a smash with It's My Party and I'll Cry If I Want To. On the heels of the hit singles, she releases her first album, I'll Cry If I Want To. And it's kind of a concept album because every song has the word cry or crying in the title. Another popular trio of female singers were the Angels, who had a big hit with My Boyfriend's Back. And of course, then they followed it up with an album. But this is one of those cases where the single is great and the album, not so much. In 1963, a very popular TV soap opera first starts. Let's all get admitted to General Hospital. While in Hollywood, on the big screen, the Oscar for Best Picture goes to Lawrence of Arabia. The folk music scene, which started in the late 50s and continued on into the 60s, really was growing by 1963, with a couple of very popular artists. The first is Peter, Paul, and Mary, who released their third album, In the Wind. It features a cover of the Bob Dylan song, Blowing in the Wind, Go Tell It on the Mountain, Stew Ball, Freight Train, and another Bob Dylan song, Don't Think Twice, It's All Right. And speaking of Bob Dylan, in 1963, he releases his second album, the terrific The Freewheelin' Bob Dylan. Great songs are Blowing in the Wind, Masters of War, Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, and Talking World War III Blues. It reaches number 22 on the charts. And a few years later, it's one of the first albums to be picked for inclusion by the Library of Congress in the National Recording Registry. Well, let's go back to sunny Southern California and check in and see what's happening down at Disneyland in 1963. Well, Walt's got a big surprise for us as he unveils the Enchanted Tiki Room, which just enthralls audiences everywhere with the groundbreaking audio animatronics technology. And across the nation, the way we send mail changes dramatically in 1963 as we are introduced to the concept of zip codes. And then the world changed with a single shot. On November 22nd, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, and everyone who was alive at that time remembers exactly where they were when they heard the news. Me, I was in high school, and I remember we all got called into the gymnasium where we all sat on bleachers and stared down at a little tiny black and white television set to watch what was unfolding in Dallas. But on a happier note, Christmas was right around the corner, and Phil Spector brings out a terrific album. It's called A Christmas Gift for You. Now, this is a Christmas album made up of Christmas songs sung by a number of artists, including Darlene Love, the Ronettes, the Crystals, Bobby Sox and the Blue Jeans, and a host of others. It's a great album. All of the artists are surrounded by the Spector wall of sound. Standout songs include Darlene Love's Marshmallow World, the Ronettes singing Sleigh Ride, and the Crystals' version of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. In 1972, this album was re-released on the Beatles' Apple Records with Phil Spector dressed up as Santa Claus. So to sum up 1963, we went from surfin', female singers, hot rod cars, folk singers, and even a national tragedy. But then the day after Christmas, something phenomenal happened. 4 young guys released some new music. But the impact of that would really take off in the next year, in 1964. So as we continue to look at the times and the tunes, I would really like your comments about what you remember from 1963 and the songs that you remember in the comments below. It was a heck of a year, and it's certainly, listening to that music, keeps us rocking. If you liked this episode, hit the like button, and you can also leave me a comment down below, and I'll respond to you. If you subscribe, we'll let you know when future episodes come out.